They didn't leave you because you weren't enough. They left because they thought they already figured you out. They believed they had read your book from cover to cover, skipped a few chapters, and decided they knew how the story ends. But folks, here's what no one tells you. Sometimes life doesn't remove people from your path as punishment. It's repositioning you for power. You weren't left behind. You were removed from their line of sight, so they could finally feel the contrast. The warmth of your presence was too consistent, too accessible, too available. So now they need to feel the void, the coldness, the echo of what used to be. My friends, begging, explaining and proving yourself to someone who's already decided to walk away, that's emotional poverty. You are not here to be someone's emotional buffet, always available for when they're hungry, bored, or confused. You're not here to be a second option, a backup plan, or a memory that just lingers while they explore other people. That's not your role. Your job now is not to chase, not to convince, but to shift the algorithm. You stop feeding them attention. You stop giving them free access. You stop being predictable, and instead you become a variable they can no longer calculate. They rejected the version of you they thought they understood. They played a game with the version of you that hadn't yet sharpened your edge. So now you rebuild, quietly, calmly, intentionally. This is not about silence. This is about scarcity, emotional scarcity engineering. You don't ghost them. You evolve beyond their comprehension. You make yourself so mentally, emotionally, and spiritually advanced that even if they came back, they wouldn't recognize how to reach you anymore. Some of you have been conditioned to believe that the more noise you make, the more someone will notice. But let me tell you a Stoic truth. Rivers don't have to be loud to be powerful. The strongest forces in this world move in silence. Tectonic plates shifting beneath the earth, stars exploding in galaxies far away, hearts breaking quietly in the dark. You don't need to announce your worth. You live it. You embody it, and they will feel it. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, when life gets quiet and empty, and the noise of the world dies down, they will feel it. Your absence, your silence, your strength. That version of you they can no longer reach. And here's the reality most people run from. Sometimes the most powerful comeback is not showing them what they lost, but becoming someone they don't have the clearance to access anymore. You're not revenge. You're rebirth. You're not silence. You're recalibration. And the person you become during this process, that version of you, that's the one they can't decode. That's the version that haunts them, not because you hurt them, but because you healed without them. So if you're sitting there wondering if they'll miss you, stop. Instead, ask yourself, will I still want them when I become who I'm about to be? Because if you do this right, if you shift the algorithm correctly, they won't be able to forget you. Not because you stayed visible, but because you became unforgettable in your absence. All right, listen to me. Don't just scroll past this like it's just another video. This moment right here is where everything shifts. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. Because if you're still here, still breathing, still watching this with that fire starting to flicker in your chest, then you're not broken. You're rebuilding. You're not lost. You're loading. So here's what I want you to do, not as a suggestion, but as a move of power, a declaration, a line in the sand. Go to the comments and type this, word for word. I am the one they can't decode. Not for me, not for anyone else. Do it for you. Say it like it means something, because it does. That sentence right there, that's the first brick in the new foundation. That's you no longer chasing. That's you reclaiming your energy, your mystery, your edge. Say it like you're done playing small, like you're done begging to be seen. Say it with the kind of stillness that makes the world uncomfortable. And once you do, hit that like button, subscribe, and lock in, because I'm not letting you fold this time. You're not going back to being that version of you who settled. Stay with me. We're about to build something dangerous. Number 1. The emotional recall effect. How you get stuck in their mind without trying. You don't have to be in someone's life to live in their mind. You don't have to be in their bed, their messages, or their arms to keep echoing through their thoughts at 2 a.m. when everything's quiet and their distractions run out. What people don't tell you, what no one teaches us, is that real impact is psychological, not physical. That the way someone remembers you has far more power than how often they see you. And if you learn how to create the right kind of emotional fingerprint, you will stay with them, even when you're gone. This isn't manipulation. This is truth. This is psychology. Carl Jung said it best. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. What does that mean for you? It means most people don't even realize why they suddenly feel waves of emotion when they hear a certain song, walk past a familiar scent, or enter a place you once stood with them. They just feel the hit, the pang, the ache, and they blame the weather, the timing, the music, but what they're really feeling is you. This is what I call the emotional recall effect. You didn't just exist in their life. You became woven into their moments, and if those moments were charged, romantic, emotional, intense, or even painful, then you created what's known in psychology as an episodic memory trigger. These aren't just memories. These are sensory codes, emotional bookmarks. You're not a person anymore. You're an experience. And experiences, my friends, don't fade like faces. They get replayed. Now some of you are probably thinking, but they moved on. They're happy now. They're posting someone else. Let me break that illusion. Surface doesn't equal depth. Activity doesn't erase imprint. And just because they're distracted doesn't mean they're disconnected. Emotional recall doesn't need your presence. It needs contrast. It needs silence. It needs moments where life doesn't hit as hard as it did when you were in it, and they start wondering why. Think of it like this. Imagine biting into a fruit that tasted so rare, so rich, so unique that no other flavor ever quite compares after that. Even if you try other fruits, even if you convince yourself you've found something sweeter, every once in a while you'll remember that one. The one that made your taste buds feel something new. That's you. You don't need to be there. You just need to have been felt deeply. If you did that, you left a mark. Period. But here's where it gets powerful. You can amplify that recall effect without doing anything at all. Let me explain. See, when you exit someone's life, especially after rejection, betrayal, or confusion, most people try to tie it up neatly. Closure, final words, last conversations. But what if you didn't give them closure? What if you left them with questions, not in a toxic way, but in a silent, stoic, graceful withdrawal that left room for their mind to spiral? That's what creates an unclosed loop. A story they don't get to finish. And when the mind can't finish a story, it keeps coming back to it. Again and again. That's the first key to emotional recall. Unclosed emotional loops. The second key is what I call emotion stacking. It's when you build layered emotional experiences with someone, ones that involve surprise, vulnerability, intensity, joy, or even discomfort. When multiple emotional tones are tied to one person, they form stronger mental associations. They can't think of you without thinking of a whole emotional climate. That makes you unforgettable. That's why the dull, one-note relationships they try to move on with never hit the same, because those people don't bring storms. You did. Then there's interruption points, moments where you broke their pattern. You did something they weren't expecting. Maybe you walked away before they were done playing. Maybe you forgave them when they expected rage. Maybe you went silent when they expected noise. These create memory shocks, and the brain, being the obsessive machine it is, loops back to these shocks constantly, trying to analyze, decode, and make sense of them. They don't just remember you, they study you, silently, secretly. And finally, there's memory contrast anchoring, when you show up in their life as something that stands in contrast to what they're used to. You treated them better or worse. You loved deeper or detached sharper. Either way, you were different, and different sticks. Because the mind filters through sameness, but it highlights the exception. And that's what you are now, not the one they lost, but the one they can't forget. Of course, some of you will say, but if I meant so much, why haven't they reached out? And that's fair, but let me hit you with this. Just because someone doesn't speak on it doesn't mean they don't feel it. Stoicism teaches us that not all emotions are expressed, and not all silence is empty. Some silences are loud. Some silences are full of tension, ego, fear, regret. Some silences are someone fighting their pride in the middle of the night, staring at your name, debating if reaching out will expose their weakness. So no, don't fall for the illusion that silence means indifference. Sometimes silence is the echo of a war going on in their chest. But now comes the hardest part. You have to let go before they remember. You have to stop feeding the connection. You have to go dark, not out of spite, but out of strength. You have to trust that emotional recall doesn't need help. It needs time. And yes, it'll be uncomfortable. You'll question everything. What if they never think about me again? What if they're truly over it? But here's the real question. What if they never get to know who you're about to become? That should scare them, not your absence, but your evolution. So let them remember you on their own. Let their own mind do the work. And when it does, it won't just remember your name. It'll remember the way you moved, the way you made them feel, the way you exited, the way you didn't beg. Because that's power. Type this in the comments right now. I am the echo they can't silence. Write it, own it, live it. Number 2, kill the cringe chase. Energy, activate reverse imprinting. Every time you double text, every time you explain yourself when they've already checked out, every time you post hoping they'll watch your story and feel something, you chip away at the version of you they once respected. You may think you're fighting for love, but what you're really doing is bleeding your dignity on the altar of someone who already made up their mind. And let's be real, my friends. Chase energy is loud, desperate, and above all, forgettable. What you need to do now is kill that cringe, not out of spite, out of self-command. Because when you stop chasing and start pulling away, not with drama, not with petty games, but with neutral self-elevation, you activate something rare, something I call reverse imprinting. Here's what that means. The last version of you they experience becomes the one that sticks the hardest in their mind, not the one crying, not the one over-explaining, not the one spiraling in DMs at 3 a.m., the one who calmly stopped responding, the one who didn't make a scene, the one who left with their spine straight and their soul unshaken. That's the imprint. That's the version that lingers in silence. Most people destroy their emotional legacy by trying to win back someone who's already detached. They overshare, they overreach, they chase, and in doing so, they replace every memory of depth, warmth, and connection, with a new memory of desperation. Don't do that. Don't hand over the last image of you drenched in neediness. Let them remember your clarity, not your collapse. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But here's the part people forget. If one of those substances gets diluted, the reaction fades. And that's exactly what happens when you chase after someone who's already disengaged. You dilute the very presence that once captivated them. You turn transformation into background noise. So what do you do instead? You elevate quietly. You don't show them a glow-up. You become the glow-up, not just in appearance, but in mindset, mood, and movement. You stop reacting to their breadcrumbs. You stop orbiting their attention span. You begin curating a version of yourself that is no longer emotionally dependent on their validation. And that version, that one becomes a mirror, reflecting back to them everything they lost, without you having to say a single word. And that's the secret to emotional contrast. You let them swim in the shallow waters of their new connections while you build depth in silence. They'll laugh, flirt, distract themselves, but at some point they'll notice something missing. An energy, a depth, a feeling they can't recreate. And when they try to connect that feeling to a person, they'll land on you. Because you weren't just an experience, you were an emotional standard. And when people downgrade after tasting quality, even the best distractions start to feel like plastic. You don't become unforgettable by being everywhere. You become unforgettable by becoming unreachable in spirit. Not cold, not bitter, just calmly unavailable to people who can't meet your new level. And yes, it's hard, especially when your ego wants to prove your worth, when your heart wants to be seen, when your mind is screaming, "What if I just remind them how good it was?" But Stoicism teaches us this. The moment you stop needing to be remembered is exactly when you become impossible to forget. So don't flinch, don't fold, don't fumble your legacy trying to control someone's perception of you. They already decided once to step away. Now let them live with that decision while you rise in silence. Type this in the comments right now. I am the version they'll never meet again. Because that's your power. Calm, unbothered, elevated. Number 3. Burn the fantasy, not the bridge. You don't have to slam the door to make a point. You don't have to rage, block, or ghost just to feel powerful. That's reactive energy. That's a nervous system still craving control. But true strength, true, grounded, stoic strength, is when you walk away without destroying the space behind you. You don't burn the bridge. You just stop standing on it. And when they come looking, they'll have to cross it alone, with no idea what version of you is waiting on the other side, or if you're even there at all. That's the art of burning the fantasy, not the bridge. See, most people think closure comes from final words, angry exits, or clean cuts, but that's not always necessary. Sometimes what shakes someone the most isn't how loud you left, it's how maturely you exited. No drama, no scene, no breakdown, just distance, calm, quiet, unannounced. It's the absence of chaos that makes your presence echo louder than any fight ever could. When they expect noise and you give them stillness, they don't know how to process it. And that's when the story starts playing in their head instead of yours. When you ghost someone, they feel dismissed. When you fight them, they feel attacked. But when you exit with composure, no begging, no parting shots, just full emotional disengagement, you preserve the one thing that haunts people the most: fantasy. The what if, the maybe, the lingering tension of a story that never got a real ending. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But don't I need to let them know how I feel? Don't I deserve closure? Yes, you do deserve closure, but not from them. You give that to yourself, quietly, because chasing closure from someone who already made peace with hurting you is a trap. What you need now is strategic disengagement, a withdrawal so calm it makes them question everything. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. And that's the exact type of loneliness you leave behind when you exit like this. You become the person they can't talk to anymore, not because you blocked them, but because they no longer have emotional access to you. They'll want to reach for the version of you that used to explain, forgive, respond, try. But that version doesn't live here anymore. And make no mistake, this silence isn't empty. It's loaded. It carries all the maturity, grace, and control they didn't think you had. That makes them feel small. It makes them realize that the power dynamic has shifted. When you cut off the emotional oxygen supply, no coldness, no heat, just airlessness, they start to suffocate in their own unresolved guilt. That's the hit they never saw coming. It's like walking into a room you used to live in and realizing it's been cleaned out. The furniture is gone, the photos are off the wall. There's no note, no sign, no scent left behind, just space. And suddenly, that space feels like a mirror. And what they see in it isn't you. It's their own reflection. Uncomfortable, incomplete, haunted. That's how you become unforgettable, not by proving a point, but by becoming a question that never got answered. So don't slam the door. Just stop opening it. Don't shout. Just stop speaking. And most of all, don't give them the gift of a clean break. Let them walk back one day, slowly, curiously, only to find the bridge still standing, but you're no longer waiting on the other side. Type this in the comments right now. I left the bridge, not the fire. Because your silence isn't rejection, it's elevation, calm, sharp, unreachable. Number 4. Ego withdrawal syndrome. Why pulling back creates psychological discomfort. At first, they won't react. They'll act unbothered. They'll post like nothing happened, maybe even seem happier. But what you're watching is not peace, it's distraction. You've pulled something away from them they were quietly addicted to. Your validation, your attention, your emotional labor, the compliments, the reactions, the responses, and now that it's gone. Welcome to what I call ego withdrawal syndrome, the psychological discomfort that kicks in when someone loses the mirror they used to see themselves in. See, most people don't want you. They want the way you see them. And when you were in their life, you reflected the best parts of them back to them, even when they didn't deserve it. You were their emotional mirror. You told them they were enough. You made them feel special, desired, significant. That does something to a person. It gives them a hit, a little dopamine boost, a little ego high. Over time, it becomes part of their identity. And when you pull that mirror away, when you go quiet, when the compliments stop flowing and the attention isn't available on demand, they don't just miss you, they start losing pieces of who they thought they were. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to face the world. Your validation was part of the mask they wore. It helped them maintain the illusion of control, of desirability, of being needed. But now, without you reflecting those qualities back to them, the persona begins to crack. And when that happens, the ego panics. Because the ego hates confusion. It hates silence. It hates uncertainty. It thrives on control, praise, and predictability. And when you pull away calmly, without drama, without closure, without explanation, you become unpredictable. You become a glitch in the matrix. That's when the real discomfort sets in. First, they deny it. They're just trying to make me miss them. Then comes the irritation. Why aren't they reaching out? Who do they think they are? Followed by curiosity. Are they seeing someone else? Did they stop caring? And eventually, the spiral, the self-questioning, the realization that maybe, just maybe, you weren't as dependent as they thought. Maybe they weren't as irreplaceable as they assumed. That's not just emotional discomfort, that's ego death in slow motion. You see, your absence is not just a void, it's a disruptor. It forces reflection, and for someone who relied on you to keep their emotional supply going, that reflection hurts. They have to face parts of themselves they never looked at before. Insecurities, guilt, regret. It all starts bubbling up when the noise of attention disappears, and the more silent you stay, the louder the internal noise gets for them. Because now they're not dealing with you, they're dealing with themselves. And trust me, some people would rather fight with you than sit alone with their own emptiness. But here's the beautiful part. This is where the power shifts. Not because you played games, not because you manipulated, but because you stopped giving your energy to someone who couldn't respect it. You stopped feeding an ego that expected you to always be available, always be praising, always be chasing. And it's hard. Let's be honest, walking away from someone you still care about is brutal, especially when your silence is met with theirs. But understand this, every second you hold the line, every moment you resist the urge to check in, every time you don't respond to their bait, you're not losing them, you're reclaiming you, your dignity, your clarity, your power. So don't fear their silence. Don't assume they're unaffected. Just because they're not showing you the withdrawal doesn't mean they're not feeling it. Most ego crashes happen in private, and by the time they admit to themselves what they lost, they'll have to watch you thrive from the sidelines. Type this in the comments right now. I removed the mirror. Because you're not here to reflect their ego anymore. You're here to build your soul. Quiet, strong, unbothered. Number 5. Emotional agility. The number one trait that forces respect. Rejection breaks most people because they make one fatal mistake. They believe that being hurt means they have to fall apart, so they spiral, they lash out, they beg, they fall into emotional autopilot and become predictable. And once someone can predict your every emotional reaction, they no longer respect you. They control you. But there's a trait most people overlook, and it's the one thing that demands respect without saying a word. Emotional agility. Emotional agility isn't about pretending you're fine. It's not about masking pain or faking happiness. It's about pivoting. It's the art of moving through the storm without letting the storm become your identity. It's the ability to take rejection, disappointment, confusion, and use them as fuel, not fire. You're allowed to feel the sting, but what matters is what you do with it. You don't collapse, you upgrade. See, the people who walk away from you, they often expect a reaction, not because they care, but because they want confirmation. They want proof that they mattered, that they had power, that their absence left you in pieces. So when you disappear into silence, not to punish but to process, when you stay calm, when you keep building in the background while they expect breakdowns, you completely rewire how they see you. Carl Jung taught that even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness. But the trick, he said, is not to eliminate the darkness, it's to embrace it with clarity. That's what emotional agility is. It's knowing that you're in pain, but refusing to let that pain choose your actions. It's knowing your emotions are loud, but choosing not to broadcast them to people who haven't earned the right to see them. And that choice, that stillness, that's where poise is born. Not coldness, not indifference, just composure, presence, precision. While they're expecting a mess, you show them mastery. This is where perception pivoting comes in, a Stoic technique you need to tattoo on your mindset. It means you take the same pain that could have destroyed you and shift how you perceive it. You don't say, "They left me, I must not be enough." You say, "They left me, and now I have room to become more." You don't say, "I'm alone." You say, "Now I'm focused." Every rejection becomes redirection. Every heartbreak becomes fuel for evolution. Every silence becomes a sacred space for power to return. And yes, it'll hurt. You'll have moments where you want to reach out, where you want to scream into the void, where you'll wonder if staying calm is even worth it. But understand this. Every time you choose emotional agility over emotional chaos, you level up. And whether they say it or not, they feel that shift. It unsettles them. It disrupts their perception of you. It makes them question if they ever truly understood you at all. Because people respect those who can feel everything and still move like they feel nothing. That's not numbness. That's discipline. That's what makes someone unforgettable. You don't flinch. You don't chase. You don't beg for closure. You pivot. You take the hit and keep building. You become so emotionally bulletproof that even when you're bleeding, they still can't find your weakness. So if you're in the middle of heartbreak right now, don't fold, don't post your pain, don't give them the satisfaction of knowing they've shaken you. Let your healing be silent. Let your comeback be sacred. Show them that rejection didn't shrink you, it sculpted you. Type this in the comments right now. I pivot with power. Because your pain isn't the end. It's just the beginning of your next version. Calm, sharp, untouchable. Number 6. The psychic hook. Phenomenon. Why they still feel you even in silence. Even when you're gone, they still feel you. Not always consciously, not always in words they can name, but in moments, in moods, in the strange quiet that creeps in when life isn't loud enough to distract them. That's what I call the psychic hook phenomenon. When you become lodged in someone's psyche in such a deep and specific way, your absence starts to feel like a presence. This isn't some fantasy. This is how the brain actually works. Neurologically, emotional intensity creates something called emotional encoding. Memories that aren't just remembered, they're relived. And the stronger the emotion, whether it's love, pain, anger, or passion, the stronger the imprint. Your name might not be on their tongue anymore, but your emotional fingerprint is still burned into the circuits of their mind. You weren't just a chapter in their story. You became a trigger in their system. And here's the part no one tells you. The brain doesn't care if the memory was good or bad. It cares how intense it was. If you made them feel anything deeply, you've planted a psychic hook. And the more unresolved the connection was, the sharper that hook becomes over time. It lingers, it pokes, it flares up during late nights and lonely mornings. Even if they run, even if they distract themselves with someone else, even if they swear they've moved on, the imprint remains. Why? Because unresolved emotional tension doesn't just go away, it echoes. It creates loops in the brain, little unsolved equations the mind keeps returning to. And in this case, the equation is you. They try to solve it with closure, with replacement, with self-delusion, but it doesn't work. Because you left the story open, and human nature hates open loops. We crave endings, and when we don't get them, we replay the story over and over, trying to make sense of it. That's why silence is so powerful. When you exit without drama, without destruction, without final words, you leave them with questions, and questions turn into obsession. That's how someone becomes the emotional benchmark. Not because they were perfect, but because no one else has been able to replace the emotional experience they gave, or the emotional closure they never offered. Think of it like this. Imagine hearing the first half of a beautiful, haunting melody, and never hearing the rest. It plays in your head for days, weeks, maybe years. It haunts you not because it was complete, but because it wasn't. That's what you become when you exit with grace and intensity. A melody they never got to finish. This is why your presence doesn't need to be loud. It needs to be unresolved. You don't need to text. You don't need to explain. You don't need to perform. You just need to stop, pull back, leave the last memory of you strong, calm, and slightly mysterious. Give them something to chew on, a final sentence that sits in their mind like a time bomb. Something like, "You'll understand later. I'm not angry. I'm just done." You'll feel it when it's quiet. One day, this silence will make sense. Short, chilling, final, but not finished. That's the psychic hook. It's not manipulation. It's psychological truth. It's how humans work. Our memories crave resolution, and when we don't get it from the person, we try to get it from within ourselves. That's when the spirals start. That's when they begin to replay everything, looking for answers, searching for signs, wondering what you meant, and that's when they realize they didn't lose a person. They lost an experience, a depth, an intensity no one else has recreated. So if you're worried they forgot you, stop. You're not forgettable. You're unresolved. That's a different kind of presence, one that doesn't fade. Type this in the comments right now. I became the unfinished chapter, because sometimes the most unforgettable thing you can be is the story they never got to close. Number 7, the magnetic mindset shift. How to reclaim mental real estate. They can't feel your energy anymore, and that's what shakes them. Not your silence, not your absence, but the undeniable shift in where your mind goes now. That's the real threat. Because most people don't miss you. They miss being the center of your emotional orbit. They miss knowing that no matter what they did, your thoughts still wrapped around them like gravity. But when you reclaim that mental space, when your world stops spinning in their direction, that's when the real silence starts to roar. This isn't about being high value. That term is overused, misused, and often just code for pretending you're fine while secretly breaking. What we're talking about here is something deeper, something unshakable. We're talking about becoming self-directed, someone whose emotional compass points inward, not toward the people who couldn't stay. Someone who doesn't hand out their mental real estate like free samples at a grocery store. Someone who chooses where their energy lands and withdraws it with the same precision. See, the reason they felt powerful was because you placed them at the center of everything. Every mood, every decision, every anxious scroll through your phone. You made them the destination. They were your emotional GPS, your subconscious landing page. But now, you flip the coordinates. You move them out of your destination zone and straight into past data, archived, closed, still accessible, but no longer active. And believe it or not, they feel that. Not because you said anything, but because energy doesn't lie. Humans are sensitive to shifts in emotional frequency, especially when they were once receiving it constantly. When that supply gets cut off, even subtly, their body reacts before their brain can explain it. They start checking, lurking, wondering, not because you reached out, but because you stopped. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." And here's the twist. This applies to emotional energy too. You can say you've moved on all day long, but if you're still obsessing over their Instagram story, still hoping for a text, still feeling like they owe you closure, they'll sense that pull. They'll feel that you're still tied, still orbiting. But the moment you redirect that energy inward, when your thoughts no longer reach for them before bed, when your mornings are no longer heavy with what-ifs, when your peace stops depending on their noise, everything shifts. Because now you're not operating on an emotional exchange system. You've shut down the trade route. No more giving energy to someone who doesn't deposit anything back. You're not in the business of emotional charity anymore. You're running on self-command, and that's what magnetizes people. Not pretending, but detaching authentically. They don't miss you because you said the right thing. They miss you when your energy stops knocking, when your presence stops confirming their importance, when they realize you're no longer watching, that they've been performing for an audience that quietly left the building. And yes, this takes work. Retraining the mind isn't instant, but every time you catch yourself drifting back to old thoughts, you gently shift the focus. You reclaim the moment. You turn, "What are they thinking about me?" into, "What am I building for myself today?" over and over, until the pattern breaks. So stop trying to be high value. Just stop orbiting people who don't even know how to hold space. Choose your gravity. Choose your focus. Take your mind back from people who didn't protect your heart. Type this in the comments right now. I moved them to past data, because your mind is no longer their playground. It's your blueprint, and you just changed the locks. Number 8. When they circle back, don't give them nostalgia. Give them confusion. When they come back, and many do, don't meet them with wide arms and old energy. Don't give them the comfort of nostalgia. Don't slip back into the rhythm they once danced to. That version of you? Gone, archived. That door doesn't open anymore, because the real move now is confusion. You don't act bitter. You don't act warm. You act unreadable, calm, clear, but unfamiliar. This isn't revenge. Revenge is loud, messy, fueled by unresolved pain. This is revelation, the quiet shock that hits someone when they realize they're not speaking to the same version of you they walked away from. You don't feed their ego by showing them you miss them. You don't stroke their pride by replaying the past. Instead, you offer them something far more uncomfortable, a brand new vibe they can't decode. It's like someone going back to a childhood home and realizing everything's been renovated. The walls are a new color, the furniture's gone, the warmth is missing, and worst of all, their key doesn't work anymore. That's what you've become, a space they once occupied that no longer feels like it belongs to them. Because here's what they're hoping for. They're hoping the door is still cracked open, that you're still low-key waiting, that you'll meet them halfway with softness and memories. But when you don't, when your energy is composed, grounded, focused, not cold, but upgraded, they start second-guessing everything they thought they knew about you. That's when the discomfort begins, because now they don't know how to relate to you. And that confusion, that's power. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that's exactly what's happened. You didn't fake growth. You grew. You sat in the dark. You rebuilt. You shifted. You became emotionally literate, self-sufficient, and untouchable in ways they never imagined. And now, They're not talking to the person who used to over-explain. They're not facing the one who begged. They're standing in front of someone who no longer plays the same emotional game because the rules changed and they didn't even notice. You don't have to show them wounds. You don't need to explain your journey. You are the explanation. Your tone, your choices, your boundaries, your silence, every move you make now is a quiet reminder that you're not trying to be remembered. You're already unforgettable. Not because you stayed the same, but because you evolved without them. You became the lesson. And here's the twist. You become the one that got away, not by walking out with drama, but by rising so far beyond their emotional depth, they simply can't reach you anymore. It's not that they lost you, it's that they stayed the same while you kept becoming. And that's something no message, no apology, no reunion can fix. So when they circle back, don't offer nostalgia. Don't give them the past. Give them a mirror. Let them see what growth looks like. Let them feel what true detachment sounds like. And let them sit in the silence of a connection that expired the moment they took it for granted. Type this in the comments right now. I became unrecognizable. Because you didn't just walk away, you transcended. And now they don't know how to find you. Even when they're looking right at you,